Okay, getting set to do an oil change on the 2021 Ford Escape Hybrid. Well, first problem encountered. The ramp interferes with the front spoiler before the wheel gets onto the ramp. But I have a solution to that. Those extensions make it much easier. Fortunately, I had those which I use all the time on my Ford Mustang. Well, that works, and that's given me about 15 to 16 inches of clearance to be able to work on the deflectors underneath, so hopefully I'll be able to get under there. So obviously we've got this cover underneath the engine for aerodynamics, and holy cow, there's a lot of fasteners. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So there's at least 14 or 15 small fasteners that have to be removed. Wow, that's a lot of work. Okay, let's get and remove those. Well, there's that little screw. And I used a 7mm socket and made life easier with my impact driver. So, 15 little screws removed. And if you look underneath here, you can see that without the screws, it's at least retained in a position by this tab. And then we've got a tab on the front end, 2 tabs on the front end. So basically, it's self-supporting with the screws out, so now I just have to pull that out. And there's the cover, all removed. Very lightweight, a fibrous sort of mat. Obviously to keep the noise down, improve the aerodynamics, and keep the water splashes out from under the engine bay. I think we're laying an egg today. Okay, let's continue. So here's the exposed engine underside. We've got a cast aluminum oil pan, and you can see there's the drain plug right there. And then the oil filter is vertical, hanging vertical, and is right there, so that's easy to get to. Just have to pull these cables out of the way, grab it, and hopefully we can just turn it by hand, which is how it should be able to be removed. Okay, let's see if I can find a socket for that drain plug. The socket for the drain plug is a 15mm. So I've got everything set up now. Hopefully I get the pan in the right place, because that oil will come out horizontal, so it'll shoot somewhere towards the back. Hopefully won't make too much of a mess. Let's proceed. There we go, perfect. There's the drain plug, typical Ford one. It's got a rubber sort of gasket on there, which the dealer says they replace at about 50,000. I've got the same situation on my Mustang that's got 72,000, and I've never replaced the plug yet, but the gasket yet, but I will do on the next oil change. But that's how the plug works. Now note that the oil is coming out real easy, because I took the vehicle for about 6.5 mile drive. That's about the only way to get the engine warmed up, because it's downhill down into town from the house. So I had to go into town and then come back up the hills to get the hybrid engine running and get it warmed up, so it was at normal operating temperature. And then obviously it took about 10 or 15 minutes to get set up, so by that time the oil actually isn't that hot, so easy to work on. Just let that drain now, and when that stops draining, I'll move on to the oil filter. So while the oil is draining, I'm going to fill up the oil filter with some oil and lubricate the seal on it. And I'm going to use Mobil 1 0W20. That's my go-to oil, Mobil 1. Most of the OEMs actually use Mobil 1 as a first fill at the factory. People like Toyota and I believe Honda as well. As it says, advanced fuel economy. That's one of the reasons why these guys, when they're designing the engines these days, go for the lower viscosity oils, is because of fuel economy. Reduces the resistance inside the engine and gives you better performance for the size and also better fuel economy. Right, so I'm going to fill up the oil filter. Okay, doing this one-handed with a camera in the way, so let's make sure we don't spill it. Okay, I mean, it takes a while for the oil to get through the paper media inside, and it would actually take some more oil, but that's good enough. That's going to reduce the time to develop pressure. And then I'm just going to use that oil to moisten or lubricate that seal. And we're done. 5 minutes or so and the oil is drained out. I'm going to put the plug back in, so I'll just put the phone down and then we'll pick it up with the torque wrench. Okay, I have my torque wrench set to 20 pounds-feet, so we'll just tighten it up until she clicks. There we go. And before I move on to the oil filter, what I usually do is just mark the torque setting on the underside of the oil pan. I do that with most of the drain plugs so that I don't have to look it up next time. Well, I've tried to remove this by hand, which you should be able to do, unless somebody's really murdered that up tight, and they have. So the factory really puts those on tight, unnecessarily so. So I've got to use a filter wrench. Now I have one, but it's too loose on the oil filter. It just spins. So I'm going to try a trick and tighten that up. So let's just put a bit of material on there. Offer that up. Push it on, and it's nice and tight now. Yep, that's nice and tight. So let's see if we can get the wrench on it. It's about 20 minutes later. Wow, that thing was on there tight. This idea with the cloth didn't work. I just couldn't get enough torque on it. In the end, I had to use my chain filter wrench, which is actually really difficult to get any movement on it. Once you've got it locked onto the filter, you've probably only got 3 to 5 degrees of rotational movement to try and undo the filter. So it was try and try and try, and eventually I got it off. So here's where it is. So now we've got the filter off, and you can see here there's very little room with your filter wrench to be able to move it back and forth. It's real difficult. Would have been easier if I had one like this that actually fitted real tight on the filter, but even so, that was tight, and you can see the damage that the filter's done. Now this is really interesting because there's the one they actually specify. The FL910S is the official filter in the manual, and this is what you get from the Ford dealer, although you can buy it at Walmart as well if they carry it. But look at the difference in the size, and I've not seen that before, so I don't know why that is. But it's obviously a different filter. I can't turn it upside down, but it is a Ford filter. I think it says H6BG6714BA. So it is a much smaller filter than the one that you put on afterwards. So Anyway, I'm going to put this on, and I'm going to put it on in now according to the specs from the Ford dealer. You tighten the oil filter up to 71 pounds inches, and then you tighten another half a turn. Well, my tried and true tested way of filters, done for many, many years, is simply to, you can see me, I'm going to put it on. I'm just going to snug it up, and then I'm going to turn it, and then make sure that I can, with a little bit of effort, undo it again. And that's all you need. It's not going to go anywhere, so I've tightened it up hand tight. Try to back it off. Yes, it moves a little bit. Put it back again, and we are done. Whew, what a job. Next time, though, it's going to be so much easier. I shall just grab hold of this and spin her off. To put the cover on, as you can see, we have these little clips that are just pushed in, so we don't want to use the impact driver to torque those screws up too tight, so we do those by hand. I'm going to go ahead and put the cover on underneath. Final, and obviously the most important part of this, is to fill her up with oil again. So 5.7 quarts. I'm basically going to pour in about 5.5 quarts, and then put her on level ground and use the dipstick to do the final fill. Okay, gonna fill her up. I filled up the engine with the oil and checked it on the dipstick, and everything is good. And the interesting thing was, how do I get the engine to start and pump the oil through the system without actually driving the car, and then have the engine suddenly go full whack without the oil pressure being ready to go? So what I found was, if you get the car in ready to drive mode, just press the accelerator down to the floor and the engine will start. And so basically I let it idle and then turned it off, and we should be good to go. As you can see, I've changed the oil at 2181 miles, of which not quite half of that is electric miles, so I've got just over 1,000 miles on the engine. So the engine's going to be bedded in as best as it'll ever be. So the rings and the piston will have done their job as far as the run-in, so we're good to go. So now what I'm going to do is reset the oil monitor gauge. So we just go into, if you can see it here, menu. We come down to settings, go down to oil life. 88% is what we had. So I'm going to press OK to reset. Bingo, we're now at 100%, so we're good to go. Okay, what I'm now going to do is go look at the oil that I took out of the engine, because I've let that settle in the pan, and let's see what's in the bottom of the pan. So I drained the oil out of the pan, trying to not disturb the sediment that has settled in the bottom, and you can see some small particles. They look bigger on the camera, but actually they're lots of little small particles in the oil, sort of a bronzy color, which is going to be typical of some of the debris that you're going to get in the engine when you're running it in. So I'm not at all concerned about that. Hopefully on the next oil change there will be none or very little in there. So that's what we got. Hopefully this video was useful to you guys, and now you know how to change the oil on a 2021 Ford Escape Hybrid.